And so here we are back at Steve's garage. What you're looking at right here is the original transmission that came out. After much to do and back and forth and figuring we weren't going to be able to put this one in over here, we put that one aside, and now we're going to put this Power Glide back in, but we're giving it a little upgrade with the Boss Hog torque converter. Not a tremendous stall, but should be pretty good for our setup. It's up to 2400 stall ish.
Yeah, it's 16 to 22 actually.
And that should work good with our setup, basically what we got. We'll see. It'll certainly be better than the stock one. We may end up having to change the gears, the rear gears. We don't know. We'll find out when we get it in there, but we're going to have a lot more horsepower, so that's definitely going to help. It should launch a lot better. You know, it's not going to be a race car, but it'll be a muscle car, which it's intended to be, and right now it's a muscle car with no muscle. So we're going to get this thing in. That's our first order of business today. So we got our handy dandy transmission jack ready. We're going to get on in under there, put that in there, put that torque converter in, and jack it up and bolt it together. Working on the 68 Chevelle. It's probably going to take us 352.7 days to get this quart of transmission fluid in this new torque converter. Alright, so we got the transmission in. Got the cross member mounted. We got a couple bolts in holding this up. And what you want to check after you do that is make sure this still freely spins, because if it doesn't, you got it in a bind and you need to take it back down and try it again. But we're good here. But now we got to measure. This is a new torque converter, or we wouldn't have to go through this step. But the distance from this to the flywheel has to be between 1/8 and 3/16. So we need to measure that to see if we need any shims between the pads on that or not. And otherwise, this thing will come out too far when you bolt it up and it'll ruin your pump. And that would suck, because you start it up, you try to go down the street, it ruins your transmission. You got to pull it out and put a new one in. And we're going to avoid all that. So this is the smallest gap, which was, what was it? 3/8?
Yes.
Or no?
No, it was
1/8.
1/8.
1/8. We have at least that. The biggest gap we can have, 3/16. And we don't even have that much. Can't really see it right there, but we're good with 2 washers basically. So we'll put 2 washers all the way around. Now we basically got to tighten them up. Alright, so we had to get some new torque converter bolts, because the ones we had were the wrong thread, and we had to put 2 spacers in behind it to get the correct distance for our new torque converter. But we went ahead and got them in, got them torqued up tight. Next thing we're going to work on, he's putting long tube headers in this. We're going to mount up the headers, and I'm going to have to cut these pipes and weld new collectors to bolt up to the headers on. So that's the project we're going to be working on next. We want to do that before we get all this other stuff in our way. We'll have that ready to go when it's time to bolt them back up. So we're going to temporarily mount both sides of the long tube headers that he got, and then we can get an idea where these need to be cut. And I'm gonna have to do some repair right here. This is all mashed up, and I don't know where I'm gonna need to cut it, but I got a feeling it's gonna be in the mashed up part. That's just usually how it goes. So we'll see what happens with that. Then we're gonna weld up the pipes and get them up there where they need to go, and then we can drop them back down and go ahead and put the drive shaft in and tighten up the U-joints and the C-clips on the back. I'm going to lube up the drive shaft where we put it in, obviously. And we got to put these transmission lines in, hook up the speedometer. Then on the other side, we got to get the shifter linkage all bolted up and hooked back up like it should be. And we'll go from there. Alright, so we got the headers positioned in there, and interestingly enough, you can't put these in from the top. You got to bring them up from the bottom, or there's no way they'll get in there. There's too many things in the way. So we got them in there. Now I can get down under there and find out where I need to cut the original exhaust so we can add these to the exhaust system. Let's get down here and have a look. Alright, so they're coming all the way here. Here's our old exhaust. So what we're going to want to do, problem is this pipe right here looks like 3-inch. It might be 2.5 and this is a 2 1/4, but this pipe is smaller. The original pipe that he had is smaller. Then they joined it to bigger pipe that goes all the way out. So we're gonna have to figure out what we need to do. And then there's a bent section right here. You can't really see it because of the lighting is bad.
I think I got it. The perfect 3/8 for you.
So we're gonna have to probably take this section out and put something all the way from here to right here where it bolts on. So that's what we're gonna figure out. I'll try and get you down here where you can see what's happening. I think my saw's broke. Oh. Alright, so we got our headers on, bolted on. We got our welding done. So we got new exhaust, that's up there. It's not pretty, but she's strong and shouldn't leak. That's the main thing. We got our gaskets on. We put our starter up in there. We got our wires away from the header. That's one thing, fellas, when you get new headers, you're gonna have problems with wires touching them. If they touch them, they're gonna burn through. These get really hot. They also change how you put things up there because they take some space otherwise that you would have had with the regular ones. So we got our transmission line hooked up for the modulator valve so it can modulate and do what it's supposed to do. We got our shifter linkage over there. You can't really see it, but trust me, it's over there. And we got our cooler lines hooked up, got them all tight, and we got a rear differential. Well, the what do you call them? Them U-joints or
U-joints.
U-joint U-bolts are all tight, snugged up. We lubed this before we slid it in the transmission because we put a new seal in that too. Steve changed that one out so we wouldn't have any leaks there. So we should be good to let this thing down once we put a wheel on it. Obviously, we're not going to let it down like that. But we'll put the tire, wheel and tire back on and let it down and start working on the top side and getting this thing running. We're getting really close now. See if this thing's going to run like a scalded dog. So we were down here minding our own business, and Steve remembered that he never has really had an e-brake. So we're putting this back up and we're like, wonder why it's not working. And basically we couldn't figure out if these big wires got stretched or what happened, but somebody was under here and it looks like they moved the place of where these little hooks are. Because the way this works is this cable right here goes up to your pedal and it pulls this set of cabling which goes to the other side and anchors, and this side actually goes to the e-brake inside the wheel hub where the brakes are. And this, when he put it all the way down, wasn't providing enough tension. So we took this little adjustment all the way out and it still wasn't enough. So we ended up moving that one over there at the end of my finger. See the hole on the inside? Right there. We moved it from there, drilled another hole over there, and moved it that far out. Then we tried it again with it all the way up snug, and it still wasn't enough. So we came over here, and we moved this one from way over here. Where was it? Was it here? No, it was there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
From way over here to way over here. So we're guessing that whoever put this back on when it wasn't working, who worked on this thing before with the exhaust or whatever they didn't put it in the right place or whatever. And it looks like they even tried to maybe jack this thing right here, because that's not where you jack, fellas. It's right here on the frame. You don't want to be anywhere here. This is just the bottom of your floor. Yeah, that'll cave in every time, but I'm not sure if it looks like that happened or they ran over something real big. I doubt that. But anyway, so we got this working now. So that was kind of a rabbit trail, but all right, here we are working on the Chevelle at Steve's garage again, and we are finally on what I call the home stretch, and that basically means we're getting real close here. We got the transmission in, we got the exhaust done underneath, everything wrapped up under there, the drive shaft, all that kind of stuff, new torque converters in. We got our headers all welded up down there, the pipes are connected, and we got our gaskets on those. They're tightened up, ready to roll. So now we're going to be wrapping up, getting some of this front stuff on, bracketry and power steering pump and the fan, and we'll probably toss a radiator in, and then it's going to be all the the fuel make it happener and the lightning whirler thingy, and we'll throw that in there, and then it'll be time to start this up. May not be today, but it's going to be really close to happening in the next day or two. So I'm going to get you up here on the tripod so you can see what we're doing. We're going to get at it. So we're starting putting our bracketry together. We got an alternator bracket on here. We got the bottom of the power steering hooked up, and our problem is now the bracket that was the tensioner for the power steering pump no longer will hook to the manifold like it used to. So we don't have any way to tension this and a bracket that'll hold it, and we can pull it back and then tighten it too, which goes to this bolt. So we got to find a solution for that. And Steve got this bracket for the alternator. This is the original, and the problem with that is when we bring it up here, you see we got a distance problem. Now it makes this, basically this thing is too high with our current situation here. So we're gonna have to figure out something else for this. This has to be moved out about half an inch, maybe between a half and a quarter inch. So we got to put spacers here to move it out, because we're also hitting our new tall valve covers. So that's the kind of stuff that you run into when you change things, but persevere, it'll be worth it in the end. So we'll let you know what we find out. Alright, so Steve got his shipment in, new parts from, Summit. And maybe you can see that, I don't know. Trust me, they're from Summit. Alternator bracket, power steering pump bracket. So we were having problems getting everything lined up, and we really didn't want to mess around with this thing trying to break the cam in, and all of a sudden a belt flies off, we can't keep it cool, and we wipe a cam lobe and we got to take it all back apart and put a new cam in it. So we were like, that's not really what we want to do. So he got on there on the old interwebs and called him up, and Summit came out with this solution here. So he's got the power steering bracket already put on, and then we're going to put this lower part for the alternator, and we're going to take this one off. And when we get all done, this should be beautimous. Except this bracket's made for a long pump, but based on what we saw last time, we're like, we can make it work. So we did. We ended up putting a small bracket here. It does go up here. We put spacers down here. Our belt is now lined up perfect, if you can see that, straight on like it should be. I can't get the right angle for you to see it from here, but trust me, it's right on. Now we're gonna have to take a little bit off the alternator right here, and that's because the way this sits, we can't bring this back, because then you can't get this off, your power steering pump top to check. So we're gonna have to grind some off the alternator right here. and you can pretty much see the black mark that I have on it. That's how much we need to grind off. Then this thing will come straight down, and it won't be pulling it at an angle when we get it tight. So that should solve our bracket issues. Then we can tighten this up, tighten this one up, and move on with this thing, because this has been a bear for sure. But that's how it looks. Those are pretty cool brackets. Like I said, we adapted one from the long pump. We have a short pump on this one, but nothing else was working, so this is the route we went, and it's gonna work out. And then later on, the only reason we didn't move this over here was because Steve is later wanting to put his air conditioner back on, and so the bracketry and all that for the air conditioner goes over here, and he can probably use his stock brackets on that, which he already has, because all of this is still the same. I can't remember what it did up here, but I think he's going to run into trouble because these are too tall. These are a lot taller than the old valve covers, so his stock bracketry may not work. So he may end up having to get some different brackets to mount the air conditioner anyway. But whatever the case may be, we have pretty much solved this. It looks like it's all on one side now, but there's a lot of cars running like that. But normally they would take this and put it over there, like I said, just to make it look even. But if you put the AC in the picture over here, it's going to look even, except for the power steering pump. So it's going to be pulling on both sides. But it shouldn't be a problem as far as pulling one way or other on the engine. It's not going to put any more load on it. It's pulling, so it should be fine. And if it's not, we'll find out. Right? So there it is. We finally got it all straightened up. We got a bracket on here. We got this bracket. This is tight. The belt is lined up just like it should be. Power steering's tight. We can get this off. It's a little bit in the way, but not much. What I did was took this bolt right here. Wait, where's my finger? There we go. Took this bolt right here and ground it down on the grinder so it would be out of the way. So now we can put power steering in. This is tight. The belt works. The original belt actually worked on that. Now, for future reference, we're going to have to alter this bracket right here because it comes up over here. So we'll have to take one of these and weld boop 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 to right here, so he can just throw on any stock alternator. This is a altered alternator, if you will. Get it? Altered alternator. Yeah, it's alternately different than the others. So you can't buy these on the shelf, so that's not a good deal. So now it's my understanding that all the front right here is where the bracket hooks up are all standard. So in the future, what we're going to do is bring this thing up to where it goes right here, weld the bracket. We'll bring it up here on the top, weld a bracket to it, and bring it down to here, and then it'll all line up straight just like it's supposed to, just like this one does. But the problem is with this, when this one goes out, he's got to alter another one to make it fit, and we don't want to be in that situation. What we ended up doing was bending this a little bit, and that's not the right way to do it. But if you look at the belt alignment, we're not going to have any problems until this alternator goes out.